So, if you couldn't guess, I am a fan of the Godzilla franchise. I have been since the 1998 movie, and I have since watched every Godzilla movie ever made. I bring this up because this year, we have a new movie coming out, Godzilla Minus One. A reboot of the franchise that promises to go back to its original roots. So, as you can imagine, I am really hyped for this movie. At least, that is what I would say if I wasn't really worried about it. Not because I think the movie's going to suck, but because of how Toho's been going about making their Godzilla movies. And it has to do with everything relating to Shin Godzilla. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Shin Godzilla. It's easily by far the best Godzilla movie in the Reiwa era. It was a return to form, having him be an allegory to nuclear disaster. It's clever but still engaging commentary on the Japanese government responding to Fukushima. The eldritch horror that was Godzilla. It wasn't perfect, but it is probably, for right now, the only film I'd have standing up there with the original film. But in recent years, I've been losing a lot of respect for this film. Not because it was bad in hindsight or anything, but because of the legacy it left on the franchise. When adjusting for inflation, this is the second highest grossing Godzilla movie of all time, right behind King Kong vs. Godzilla. As such, this encouraged Toho to go forward with more projects. And initially, I was excited because I wanted to see Godzilla, my favorite monster, my childhood hero, go on more adventures, see old monsters return, and hopefully get something similar to the golden age that was the Heisei period. And I don't think a lot of people would argue that they didn't have similar hopes. But no. Instead, they decided to take what Shin Godzilla did and cram it into other movies without considering if it'd work or not. The most egregious example of this I can think of would have to be the Polygon trilogy. The first in this trilogy was Planet of the Monsters. Now, hear me out. A Godzilla movie that pits humanity against the King of the Monsters in a post-apocalyptic world, with Toho promising a return of both famous and underused monsters, from Ingurus to Hedorah to Dagara and even Dagora. And the trailer promised a heart-pounding action-adventure movie. Needless to say, I was excited, and I wasn't the only one. But when the movie came out, it turned out that all the monsters we were promised were just quick cameos. And this was not an action-adventure like it was advertised, but some weird post-apocalyptic drama that really didn't play into its premise. And the only monsters on this supposed planet of monsters were weird dragon things and a second Godzilla. Needless to say, it was a disappointment. But hey, this was the first in a trilogy. It'll clearly only get better from here. Oh, right. Then City on the Edge of Battle came out. Not only did the idea of having a city in a post-apocalyptic world go against the very idea of this trilogy's premise, but it also went a step further and advertised Mechagodzilla. Why would you have these two things in your post-apocalyptic movie on a world where humanity has not built anything, nor stepped foot on for 20,000 years? Especially when the latter was destroyed in the first film. The mere idea felt like Toho liked the premise, but didn't want to commit to it. How can we make a Godzilla movie if he doesn't destroy a city? Herpader. But it also gets worse, because Mechagodzilla doesn't appear in this film at all. Why? Because he is indeed the city on the edge of battle. Yep, Mechagodzilla literally turned himself into a city. So, why even advertise this movie having Mechagodzilla in it if he isn't actually in the movie? That's false marketing right there. But don't worry, this movie continues trends from the last one. It literally has Godzilla Earth, the supposedly most powerful of all Godzillas, do nothing but sleep and walk all day until the plot demands he does something. Take it from someone who grew up with the movies that portray Godzilla as a character, I really wish there was more to this guy instead of just force of nature. But I shouldn't be too mad, because this movie makes up for it with an extreme lack of what it promised, by having us hang out with the human characters who, while not boring, they're mostly just a few steps above Ford Brody in terms of flatness. Except the Billa Saludo and the Hotua. The former is just there to serve this trilogy's, if I'm being honest, very uncharacteristically pessimistic message. And the Hotua are just there to set up the third film. But it's also not like they go on any engaging adventures either. After all, why would anyone want to explore a planet of the monsters when they could have long scenes of talking? Walking around, and it's only in the ending that we actually get to see Godzilla Earth do something, and for some reason doesn't even use all the powers he had in the film prior. Gee, it's almost like that entire ending sequence was done to recreate what Shin Godzilla did. And that's what this feels like. It just feels like they're trying to recreate Shin Godzilla, but with a premise, themes, and concept that just doesn't lend itself to a post-apocalyptic movie. And if you look into its troubled production, you can see why I would say this. And then we got the Planet Eater. They once again relegate Godzilla to being a mindless, emotionless potato, while the human characters just screw around, talk, and don't really do anything outside of, just screw around with each other, as a bunch of mumbo-jumbo about humanity is the real monster and how we're basically better off living in the Stone Age is spieled out. Until the ending, which has Noodle Neck, yeah, I refuse to call this weird thing from the sky Ghidorah, comes down to do nothing but literally hold Godzilla for the entire third act finale. That's all I have to say. Look, this entire trilogy is its own little can of worms I can discuss in its own separate video. But this whole trilogy reeks of people trying to both embrace the legacy of Godzilla while trying to recreate what made Shin Godzilla popular. Singular Point is the only Godzilla thing I have not seen as of this video. And I did not see this series because something in me told me it was going to be a disappointment. So I won't spend much time here. But from what I hear people say about it, that's what it was. A series that, once again, promised a return of classic and new monsters in an action series was yet again a hollow attempt at recreating Shin Godzilla that relied on false advertising to get people hyped that relegates Godzilla to being an emotionless, mindless brick of charcoal that just evolves, destroys, and only exists so this thing can be called Godzilla. While all we're stuck with is a bunch of, you guessed it, political discussion. Godzilla doesn't even appear until the third episode in this 12-episode series. So that tells you what kind of show this is going to be. Or maybe not. Like I said, I haven't seen this show yet, and I do not plan on watching it just for this video. And so we come full circle. Can you see why I am worried about this film with how Toho's been treating Godzilla as of late? Godzilla is basically trapped in the shadow of Shin Godzilla, similar to how King Kong was trapped in the shadow of his original film for so long. As of recent years, I am more excited for what Warner Bros. And Legendary has in store than I am with Toho. Because the MonsterVerse has largely been what I was hoping for new Godzilla movies to be, with the one big exception. Big, fun, embracing its legacy while adding to it, with him at the center of the story as a character. Heck, I am genuinely more excited for the future of King Kong in the MonsterVerse than I am with the future of Godzilla under Toho's hands. I am sorry for saying this, but to me, I'll still watch it, but I don't think I will be excited for it. Hopefully, I will be proven wrong, and my concerns can just be dismissed. But for now, wake me up in 2024. When a film worthy of excitement is being released. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Undead Sonic 89 for his courteous $30 pledge on Patreon. Through his support, both this channel and my second one can keep making bigger and better projects. Thank you tremendously for your support.